Some of the most fun card tricks are where the spectator themselves deal the most amazing of hands. I'm going to show you an effect where from an entire deck and a random selection of cards, the spectator not only manages to deal all of the queens, all of the kings, but somehow also all of the aces. An amazing demonstration of spectator dealing skill. Stick around as we explore the trick, the secret, and of course the usual inspiring message. Let's go. Prepare to witness the extraordinary as we delve into an easy to perform card trick that transcends mere dealing skill. It's a feat of enchantment. Today, our spectator becomes the star, dealing an unreal lineup of royalty, the queens, kings, and aces. Welcome back to CoachTrick, where magic meets inspiration and success. Fasten your seatbelts because this isn't your average card trick. It's a showcase of precision, intuition, and a touch of magic. Beyond the cards, we continue to unlock the connection between mastering the art of magic and mastering success in life. So, stay tuned. Okay, get ready for some royal enchantment. Grab a deck and let's go. Okay, as ever, let's take a look at the effect itself to start with. This is a really great effect and one that can be presented as a test of dealing skill for the spectator. And we can start off as the magician by giving the deck some cuts, just like so. And once we've given the deck some cuts, we can then invite the spectator to give the deck some cuts themselves. And we're going to ask the spectator, first of all, just to cut a large chunk of the deck off, maybe about 3/4, and to turn that over, just like so. And then from this pack here, just to cut maybe 1/4 of this off the top, and then to turn that over like so. We can now gather these up, and what this gives us is a chunk of cards that a spectator has cut out of the deck. And these are the cards that we're going to use for the rest of this trick, or the rest of this test of skill in dealing. We're going to hand the pack to the spectator, and we're going to ask them to deal some cards into a single pile to the table, just like so. And we're going to ask them to keep on dealing just like that until we think we've got a reasonable amount of cards in the pile. So I'd ask them to keep going. And maybe we'll stop them just there because we think we've got enough cards now on the table. But we'll also compliment them for their dealing skills. We'll say that's some really good dealing, some really neat dealing. And so we think once again this stands us in good stead. Let's move to the next stage. So give them now the pile of cards that they've just dealt, and now ask them to deal this pile into 2 separate piles to the table, just like so. And when they're doing this, once again, just compliment them on their dealing. Just note how it's really neat and really great dealing from the spectator. In fact, it's so good, we're ready to move to the final stage of this test. And for this, we're going to ask them to take each of these piles and just to deal each pile into 2 separate piles, just like so. And once again, we're going to be marveling at the brilliance of the spectators dealing as they're doing this. Once they've completed that, we're just going to observe that that was so good, we think that this might just lead to really spectacular results. But let's just recap what's happened. We started with a deck which we conducted multiple cuts on. The spectator then cut out a random segment of cards from that deck and have now dealt those cards into numerous piles on the table. And that dealing was so good, we think that we might have amazing results. So let's just take a look. Firstly, let's take a look at each of the top cards. We have a queen over here, a queen over here, another queen, and finally a queen over here. That's all 4 piles of a queen on top. Now queens are good, but queens aren't quite as good as kings. And if we turn over the next cards on each of the piles, we have a king, a king, a king, and once again a king on top of each of the piles. Now kings are great, but kings aren't quite as good as the aces. And if we turn over each of the piles, we can see at the bottom of each of the piles, we have not one, not two, not three, but 4 aces. I think you'd agree that's some pretty spectacular dealing. All of the queens, all of the kings, and all of the aces, all dealt by the Spectator themselves. A miraculous result, a marvelous result, a really fun trick, a really great trick, and stick around because now I will show you exactly how it works. Okay, so now for the secret to this really fun effect, and here's how it works. It involves some basic setup to start with. And to start off with, you're going to set some cards up like so. You're going to take the 4 aces and place those at the top of a prepared pile here, followed by 4 indifferent, totally random cards. They can be whatever cards that you like, followed by the 4 kings, finally followed by the 4 queens. And this prepared pile of cards here will just go on top of the deck. Now, you want to start off by giving the deck some cuts yourself as a magician, but the cuts you're going to give to the deck are false cuts. And here's the first false cut that you're going to give. I've taught this cut on a previous video and I'll put the link in the description, but here's a quick overview. You're just going to swing cut off the top of the deck like so, and the bottom half is just going to loop around and end up back on the bottom, and you can place the deck back down to the table like so. And that links neatly into the next false cut, which happens just like this. You're going to take a chunk like so, cut the deck, and then return it to a single deck just like that. But in that process, nothing has changed. So just follow along. Let's just reverse the top card, which is obviously one of the aces, just so you can follow that cut. You're going to cut off about 3/4 of the deck, place that on the far side here, cut about half of this deck off, place that in the middle, go back to the far side, place that on the original pack on the left there, and then the middle back on top. So in real time that looks something like this. First false cut to the table, straight in to the second cut. You now give the deck to the spectator ready for them to perform their cuts, and ask them to cut about 3/4 of the deck. As they do so, they'll turn this middle section over, and then you want them to cut a small portion of this, maybe 1/4 or so off at the top, and then once again turn that over. Now as a magician, you're going to gather up the cards, and you're going to start on this side where the original deck started, and you're just going to place that on top of the middle deck, take both of these and then place it on the end just there. Now as you turn over this deck of cards, that's going to make it look as though we have a random section of cards in the middle, which has just been cut out by the spectator. But actually, this is just the original top of the deck. So if we take a look here, we still have all of our prepared cards. For the next section of this trick, we're going to ask the spectator just to deal some cards to the table, and we want them to keep on dealing, but we're going to secretly count here until they've dealt 16 cards. So they'll deal some cards. We might compliment them on their dealing just to fit into the routine, but we want them to keep going until they've dealt 16 cards. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Once they've hit 16, we'll ask them to stop because that should be just about enough cards now. Once again, we can compliment them on their dealing. But what we now have is a prepared stack with our aces now at the bottom through to our kings and our queens at the top. So now as we deal this into the extra piles, we're going to end up with our amazing result. So the first thing, they now just deal these cards into 2 separate piles, just like so. Once again, we can compliment them as they're doing so. Each of these piles will now have some queens and kings on the bottom and some aces on top. So now when we ask them to deal as the final step each of these piles into 2 separate piles, we end up with our amazing result. All that's left to do now is to reveal the amazing result that the dealing from the spectator has achieved. And that's obviously going to be the queens at the top of each of the piles, followed by the kings, and of course with the aces at the bottom of each of the piles. Have fun with this one, practice it, go out there, perform it, and of course the most important thing, enjoy. And there you have it. You've just conquered the mystical realms of royalty and magic. Now, as we wrap up this magical journey, let's unveil the hidden wisdom beneath the cards. Life, like our card trick, is a delicate balance of skill, chance, and a sprinkle of magic. The cards may fall in unexpected ways, but with practice and intention, you can craft your own path to success, dealing a hand that suits your aspirations. Remember that every shuffle, every deal is a step toward mastery. Keep practicing and keep believing. Until next time, keep the magic alive, keep moving forwards, and take care.